Welcome to the Black Gay History Channel. Please share this video and subscribe to this channel for more captivating content. Though I did thoroughly enjoy this season of American Horror Story, this is by far one of the widest American Horror Story seasons I've watched. So this is a stretch covering this particular season on the Black Gay History Channel. But as you know, I'm a sucker for horror and gay nostalgia, and Ryan Murphy yet again is tugging on my heartstrings with his content. American Horror Story's 11th season, New York City, 1981, is the gayest American Horror Story season so far because it takes place in New York's gay village on the cusp of the AIDS epidemic, a time in history that would simultaneously unify, terrify, and ultimately decimate a generation of gay and bisexual men, and eventually people of all ages, sexualities, and genders all across the world for over a decade. The early 80s gay community in New York is not only seen as the original stomping grounds of the modern LGBTQ movement that has changed how the world has seen gay people, it was also the time that LGBTQ people became synonymous with AIDS, a disease caused by a virus that men who have sex with men are particularly vulnerable to. Though the 1960s and 70s was a time when many gay civil rights movements were forming around the world, the gay community in New York was likely the most visible on the global stage. And by then, several queer subcultures had formed there, which is what American Horror Story, NYC, recreates perfectly, pulling us into a time when gay men had never seen so much freedom, yet still endured incredible amounts of social discrimination and homophobic violence. In AHS NYC, we are introduced to a cast of gay characters who embody archetypal gay stereotypes, some of which were inspired by real gay rights activists and icons who really existed in the early days of the AIDS epidemic and dealt with the mysterious gay illness in different ways. I immediately recognized the character Gino Borelli, an older, wiser gay columnist living in the gay village, to be much like real-life legendary gay rights activist Larry Kramer, who wrote a controversial novel entitled Faggots in 1978, warning that the gay community needed to focus on community building and politics instead of sex and drugs. In this series, Gino, just like Larry Kramer, is trying to alert his lovers and community through his gay newsletter that there is a mysterious illness spreading amongst gay men in the city, and there could also be a killer targeting gay men in New York as well. Again, because I love gay nostalgic movies, the themes of leather, BDSM, kink, and murder in the gay streets of New York in the early 80s made it clear to me that Ryan Murphy and the creatives at American Horror Story were also paying homage to a little-known gay horror movie called Cruising that caused controversy upon its release in 1980. In 1980, there were really no mainstream Hollywood movies catering to the gay community until Cruising came along, with Hollywood legend Al Pacino leading the film and bringing relevance to the movie's release. In this film, Al Pacino plays a detective who goes undercover in the New York gay leather scene to find a killer who is targeting gay men who are into BDSM. The movie brought gay culture, sex, and gore to movie screens across the nation, but of course many people, including many gay people, felt like this film wasn't great for gay representation, considering gay people barely got much exposure in major Hollywood films at all. Though this film is seen as a gay cult classic, we are now at a time where many of the themes that were explored in this movie can be fleshed out into a series, and I think they did well in recreating what Cruising started in 1980. In the series, just like in Cruising, the show sometimes questions gay and kink culture, asking the viewer to question what is the line between exploration and abuse, because there are so many scenarios in this series where kink goes too far and someone gets seriously hurt, emotionally and physically. Though I'm only halfway through the series, there are some black gay characters strewn throughout the show. I noticed trans actress Keaton making an appearance. Kyle Beltran plays Morris, a friend of one of the main protagonists, Adam, bright and bushy-tailed young gays who begin to realize someone is targeting gay men in the city. There's an oddly sexy and simultaneously disturbing scene where Adam goes to the police to try to warn them about a mysterious, massive, and muscular killer disguised in a leather mask attacking gay men, but the police want him to be quiet about what he's seen. Since they can't abuse him and keep him quiet themselves, they apparently have a muscular black gay man laying in wait to smack the crap out of gay men they want to keep quiet, which is insane to think about. Because as crazy as the scenario is, I wouldn't put it past New York police, especially in the 1980s. It's like I'm turned on by seeing this big sexy black man coming out on screen showing his cakes in a jockstrap, but it's in a room full of straight men as he's abusing another gay man. The juxtaposition of pleasure versus pain and power versus submission is a constant in this series. So much about this series is about power dynamics, which is part of how the police male culture, gay culture, BDSM, and even romantic relationships operate. In the third episode, Adam and his friends visit an upscale gay bar that's run by a black trans woman, Sis the Doll, where finally we see more black gay men attending her venue and soul music is playing, clearly representing the gay bars of the day that were more open to the black gay men. But even by the end of the episode, the leather and muscle-bound masked killer, Big Daddy, tries to lock the partygoers into the mansion and burns it down, killing several of those inside and terrifying the rest. And while gay men are going missing, being murdered, and contracting mysterious illness, the New York police and authorities ignore it because of their ingrained hatred. Though the series is an embellished time capsule of the horrors of gay life in the early 80s, many of these horrors are based on things our community endured, particularly the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. The mysterious gay illness and Big Daddy aren't the only thing that gay men in AHS NYC have to look out for. There's another killer on the loose, the Mai Tai killer, who drugs men's drinks at gay bars, takes them back home, and dismembers them. While some may think the Mai Tai killer is written to be like Jeffrey Dahmer, who actively murdered other gay men throughout the 80s, there was actually another gay serial killer I found out about, the Last Call Killer, who is likely the real inspiration behind this character. Richard Rogers, aka the Last Call Killer, became a nurse in New York and used his medical and surgical expertise on his victims, just like the Mai Tai killer in AHS NYC. And just like Dahmer and Rogers, it's likely these men got away with their crimes for as long as they did because their victims were gay men, a community the police weren't running to protect. This series does a great job of capturing the true dismay much of the gay community felt in the early 80s when gay men's safety was up in the air and all we could do was depend on each other for support despite the attacks from inside and outside of the community. Violence and HIV are still horrors our community is learning to cope with, especially black gay men. Whether that be hate crimes and discrimination or domestic violence, black gay men have a way to go before we truly feel safe in our own communities. Though it's thrilling and interesting to look back at the 1980s and see how far we've come, violence, health, and substance abuse are problems we are still struggling with 40 years later. Hopefully shows like these will encourage us to be aware of the very real dangers we still have to overcome in 2024. Have y'all watched American Horror Story New York yet? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the series below.